Instead of living his entire youth in the shadow of the bustling city, Ed learned early on how to stand out even in a crowd. School wasn't always an easy road, but he found comfort in spending time with his family, and quickly learned how words and quick wit could turn even the toughest days around. While his parents might not have been wealthy, they made sure Ed and his siblings understood the value of hard work, encouraging each of them to pursue their talents in their own ways. Slowly, his passion for storytelling came alive, leading him to pick up odd jobs with local papers where his curiosity did not go unnoticed. By the time adolescence set in, Ed had already developed an eye for the unusual, and a nose for stories that others overlooked. Though his home life was marked by simple dinners and long conversations, he never forgot the little victories that came from seeing his name in print, or the way his mother beamed when neighbors mentioned reading his latest column. Even then, the seeds of ambition had started to sprout, but no one, not even Ed himself, could have guessed how far they would grow. Growing up in a Roman Catholic household, Ed Sullivan's early life set the tone for his focus and determination. He went to St. Patrick's Cathedral School, where the order of daily life and faith shaped his perspective. Later, Sullivan attended DeWitt Clinton High School. It was there that he discovered his passion for sports journalism. The energy of competition and the details of the games fascinated him, and he found himself drawn to writing about sports more than anything else. Soon after finishing high school, Sullivan took his first steps into the working world in 1918, beginning as a sports reporter for the Portchester Daily Item. The newsroom atmosphere electrified him, and he became known quickly for his dedication and quick observations. After gaining valuable experience, Sullivan moved on to the Hartford Post, taking his growing reputation and drive with him. He continued to refine his reporting style, taking every chance to build connections and learn from experienced journalists around him. His curiosity and passion led him to the bustling world of the New York Evening Mail, where the city itself became part of the story. The city's rhythm, games, and rivalries provided endless material. Throughout the early 1920s, Sullivan built a strong reputation for fairness, accuracy, and a knack for capturing the spirit of each sporting event. By the middle of the decade, he secured a coveted position as a columnist for the New York Daily News. Sullivan's columns attracted a wide readership, and his clear, relatable style made him a respected figure in the press. These early years of education and hard-earned opportunities defined Ed Sullivan's journey and built a foundation for everything that would follow in his career. At first, Ed Sullivan's coverage of Broadway and New York's many nightclubs at the New York Daily News did more than fill newspapers. It put him face to face with some of the most prominent performers, producers, and impresarios of his time. Day after day, Sullivan brought stories about the city's glamour and culture to his readers, and the task required him to network tirelessly. As he moved from club to theater to after-hours gathering, he learned to earn the trust of entertainers and venue owners, building relationships that were rare for a journalist in an era when performers fiercely guarded their private worlds. Through this, Sullivan became something of a fixture himself, someone who was just as likely to be recognized on the sidewalk or backstage as the stars he reported on. These connections soon led to a turning point in his career, his appointment as Master of Ceremonies for the Harvest Moon Ball at Madison Square Garden. For Sullivan, this role was more than just an assignment. It was a public stamp of approval, showing that the entertainment community accepted him as one of its own. The Harvest Moon Ball, a famous and anticipated dance championship, attracted thousands of dancers and spectators each year. Serving as Master of Ceremonies there placed Sullivan directly in the spotlight, giving him a new platform and a larger audience. He was no longer simply reporting on talent. He was orchestrating the most celebrated event in town, guiding crowds, and celebrating personalities. This unique combination of newsroom experience and public performance honed his skills for what would become a groundbreaking television career. It also deepened his inside access and allowed him to help shape the changing face of popular entertainment in New York. After his time in newspaper journalism, Ed Sullivan made a big change in 1937, stepping into radio as the host of Summer Silver Theater. His voice became familiar to many listeners as he introduced different performers and entertained radio audiences. Then, in 1948, Sullivan made another leap, this time into the new world of television. He began hosting a variety show that was first called Toast of the Town. A few years later, the show's name changed to The Ed Sullivan Show as Sullivan grew more recognized. This weekly program started on June 20, 1948, and would run until June 6, 1971, giving it one of the longest lives of any variety show in American history. What made the Ed Sullivan Show special was its wide range of talent. Sullivan brought together singers who might be at the start of their careers or already famous, comedians who could entertain families from all backgrounds, and actors who performed skits or promoted new films and plays. People who enjoyed music, magic, jokes, and theater could all find something to like because of how the show combined acts from many different areas. Part of the program's reputation came from Sullivan himself. He had a talent for noticing people with special abilities, even before they had hit it big, and giving them one of their first major national appearances. Year after year, the show became a Sunday night tradition for families across the country, thanks to its mix of entertainment styles and Sullivan's reputation for discovering new stars. The Ed Sullivan Show stands out in history for its lasting impact, and for the way it brought the latest trends and most interesting acts right into American homes, introducing audiences to performances they still remember decades later. Meanwhile, television changed American entertainment forever, and Ed Sullivan was at the heart of this transformation. His weekly show became a springboard for fresh talent, giving both emerging and established artists a chance to appear before millions. Sullivan had a keen sense for acts that captured the spirit of the times, introducing audiences to the likes of Elvis Presley, whose hip-shaking performance stunned viewers and parents alike. Later, the Beatles' landmark appearance sent waves through popular culture, sparking the British invasion and changing music for a generation. Icons like the Supremes and the Rolling Stones took the stage as well, cementing Sullivan's reputation for recognizing greatness before others did. Besides launching careers, Sullivan played a meaningful role in bridging gaps in American entertainment. At a time when many shows overlooked or excluded African American performers, he gave them an important platform, helping to break down racial barriers in show business. People everywhere, from teenagers to grandparents, tuned in on Sunday nights to see what surprises Sullivan had in store. His power to influence taste, introduce new music and trends, and help artists reach national fame made his show a highlight of 20th century pop culture. The excitement and buzz around each new act Sullivan introduced proved his lasting influence on the way people experience and think about entertainment today. When Ed Sullivan made the choice to bring Elvis Presley onto his show in 1956, television history changed overnight. Millions of viewers tuned in, watching Elvis perform, and the moment became a turning point for both television and music. Sullivan's show found itself at the heart of American pop culture, as the performance was watched by families all across the country, some drawn in by curiosity, others by the thrill of something exciting and new. Years later, in 1964, Sullivan again captured lightning in a bottle with the debut of the Beatles. Their first appearance, broadcast to a record-breaking crowd, quickly made the group a household name throughout America. Both Elvis and the Beatles benefited from Sullivan's reach, and he in turn cemented his show as vital viewing, shaping public tastes, and steering the conversation around contemporary music. But Sullivan's influence spread far beyond rock and roll. His show also became a critical platform for comedians who were just beginning their careers. Before they became legends, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, and Joan Rivers appeared on the program, using the national stage Sullivan gave to them to hone their acts and find a wider audience. This platform helped these artists push the boundaries of comedy, introducing fresh ideas and daring jokes to the mainstream. Viewers across the country watched as these comedians, each with their unique style and way of telling stories, earned their first big breaks. As a result, Sullivan did not just create a space where new musical acts could flourish. He also influenced the evolution of comedy by exposing audiences to rising comic talents. His willingness to take risks and spotlight different forms of entertainment made his show a cornerstone for artists striving for national attention, and this legacy continues to echo in both music and comedy to this day. After decades of riding high in the television world, Ed Sullivan faced changing times as the entertainment landscape began to shift in the late 1960s. New musical styles, more rapid editing, and younger hosts caught the attention of viewers, drawing audiences away from the programs that had once been mainstays, including his own. People's tastes moved to more modern and edgy shows, and the competition grew fiercer. By 1971, the famed program that had introduced many stars to the American public, The Ed Sullivan Show, was finally canceled after an incredible run on television. As networks chose to make room for newer types of programming, Sullivan, who had become closely tied to the variety show format, saw his regular place on TV come to an end. Even as his landmark show wrapped up, Ed Sullivan did not disappear from the public eye. He made efforts to remain active in the entertainment industry by appearing as a guest on various television programs. While these appearances helped keep his name alive with loyal fans, none of these new projects could match the huge influence and fame of his earlier years on television. The exit of his beloved show marked a turning point in his career, underlining how closely his identity had been tied with that single broadcast. Sadly, in the final years of his life, Sullivan faced serious health problems. He was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, which eventually led to his death on September 13, 1974. His passing marked the end of an era for the millions of viewers who had tuned in to his weekly program. Growing up, Ed Sullivan's life took a turn when he met Sylvia Weinstein at a newspaper event. Their meeting happened at a busy moment in both their lives, but something about that first encounter marked the beginning of a relationship that would reach across decades. They married on April 28, 1930, setting the stage for a partnership that those around them saw as genuinely supportive and close. The couple's bond continued to grow stronger over the years, with friends and family noticing the way Sylvia stood by Ed, offering him unwavering support during times of strain as well as times of triumph. While Ed was a public figure, his relationship with Sylvia was private and protected, forming the steady background to his much more visible career. Together, Ed and Sylvia welcomed their only child, a daughter they named Elizabeth, often called Betty. The presence of Betty added a new layer of meaning to their family life, and friends often remarked on the laughter and warmth inside the Sullivan household. Throughout every twist in Ed's professional journey, Sylvia remained a confidant and pillar for Ed, reinforcing the strength of their partnership. Their family life was modest and focused, centered on ordinary joys rather than grand displays. Even as pressures from Ed's career increased, his personal life stayed rooted in the quiet, reliable rhythms of home, and his devotion to both Sylvia and Elizabeth shaped his sense of purpose. The bond between Ed and Sylvia lasted all the way up until his death, held together by the kind of understanding only longtime partners know. Tracing the years of Ed Sullivan's personal life reveals not so much big drama or dazzling secrets, but rather a long-running story of loyalty, steady affection, and the comfort of family, as Sylvia and Elizabeth remained at the heart of everything he did. Sometimes Ed Sullivan's well-known figure on television masked what his family knew all too well: a reputation for a quick temper. He could be set off by things that most people would brush aside, and his reactions were sudden and overwhelming. The same man who introduced stars and smiled for millions of viewers could become imposing, and even a little frightening at home or in his neighborhood. For example, one afternoon when a window in his house was broken, Sullivan didn't stop to ask questions. Believing some local children had caused the accident, he went straight to confront them. The scene left the children startled, and their parents uneasy, but it turned out the situation was much simpler and closer to home. His own daughter, lost in her game, had broken the window herself. There was no harm meant, just the harmless play of a child, yet the outburst left a mark on those involved. This pattern was common in Sullivan's personal life. Even small issues or misunderstandings could bring out intense emotions, and his reactions seemed far larger than the problems themselves. The impact of his temper was not just gossip or backstory. It colored how people around him behaved, affecting how his family, friends, and neighbors responded to him. Sometimes, even his public composure slipped away in private moments, revealing a side far different from what the audience saw each week. In those moments, the people close to him learned to adapt, managing his mood and temper as best they could. Throughout the 1950s and early 60s, the atmosphere in the United States was thick with suspicion about communism, and this fear touched even the personal life of Ed Sullivan. Deeply concerned about the influence of communism on American society, Sullivan became worried that his daughter's boyfriend might be a communist sympathizer. His anxiety over the spread of communist ideas was so strong that he decided to take action to protect his family. Rather than simply ask questions or rely on hearsay, Sullivan actually hired a private investigator to examine the young man's background. Using professional help, he wanted to make sure no one close to him would become a risk or bring unwanted attention. The idea of communism reaching into his family circle troubled him enough to justify this level of scrutiny. This episode demonstrates just how powerful the fear of communism was at that time. Sullivan's decision reflected the kind of anxiety that many families felt, and it also showed how these concerns often spilled out into private life, not only national politics. He remained vigilant, trusting only thorough investigation rather than appearances or conversations when he thought there could be a hidden danger. Nevertheless, behind Ed Sullivan's famous television presence, his real personality was much quieter and more withdrawn. Despite captivating millions on Sunday nights, Sullivan showed little warmth when the camera stopped, keeping to himself and preferring time alone to lively company. Even to those working beside him, his interactions stayed minimal, marked by a reluctant small talk and often silent breaks in conversation. He had none of the easy laughter or approachable warmth audiences sense through his show. Instead, with colleagues and staff, his manner remained distant. His grandson, Rob Precht, offered an inside perspective on this contrast. Rob explained that his grandfather was cautious with emotions and did not easily show affection or vulnerability, not even to family. The guarded way Sullivan lived left him at times stoic and unknowable. For those closest to him, this complicated private life could make him tough to read or approach. Rob noted that the emotional distance was not hostility, but rather a deep-rooted habit of private living. The man who made stars and shaped entertainment history spent his own life moving quietly behind the scenes, choosing reserve over openness and solitude over social gatherings. While fans saw an authoritative and charming host, those who knew him best witnessed how much his personal reserve shaped his relationships and daily life. Looking back, Rob's memories of Ed Sullivan focus on their personal relationship rather than the image known to the public. Although Ed was often seen as severe or distant on stage, and even in social gatherings, Rob felt a different side of him in family moments. At home, Ed found ways to show affection, even if he struggled at times to express deeper feelings. He was not always open about his emotions, and sometimes appeared withdrawn, which sometimes caused confusion or frustration within his family. Yet, Rob saw underneath these struggles a man who always made an effort to be present, to listen, and to support his loved ones. Ed's attempts to shield his family from the demands of his career could make him seem remote, but Rob understood this as a form of protection. Noticing Ed's contradictions, Rob realized that public and private personas do not always match. What the world perceived as stiffness or strictness was often his way of coping with pressures and protecting himself emotionally. Through small gestures, Ed expressed care, a quiet word, a shared meal, a rare but genuine smile. These moments mattered to Rob and stood out more than Ed's difficulties. Over time, Rob learned to appreciate these subtler signs, recognizing that genuine support doesn't always look the same for everyone. While Ed's fame brought attention and shaped how others thought of him, Rob's memory kept a more nuanced version alive, a loving but imperfect figure working hard to hold his family together, bridging the gap between how people saw him and how people saw him and how he tried to show his love. In remembering Ed Sullivan, Rob chooses to focus on the times Ed was there for him, offering guidance or comfort despite his own internal battles, showing that familial love can persist even when it is not always easy to express.